Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade giving you, 10 reasons to play Core Keeper. With its 1.0 update coming very soon and Xbox and PlayStation finally getting a chance to play it as well, I feel it's about time I tell you why I love this game so much. So 10 reasons with some tips and guides, especially for new players and if you're trying out the free demo. It's free available now until the 27th of August. With literally 15 to 20 hours of gameplay solid if you choose to play for free. But for sure, console fans, this one's going to be good for you as well if you're still undecided about what Core Keeper is. So hopefully you enjoy it, let me know if you do, and make sure you subscribe to the rest of my Core Keeper content. Let's go. So farming's a huge deal in Core Keeper. Growing your own crops so that you can make your own special meals gives you big buffs. It might take a while for you to get a farm like this, and this isn't even that big. I've seen definitely a lot bigger and better, but eventually you will get there. There's so many different types of crops in the game. It's a really important feature that you start early and make sure that you've got enough crops growing. In the initial stages, you'll be with just a little dirt patch and you'll be struggling maybe to find some seeds. You'll find naturally growing food that can give you a chance of dropping some, otherwise you might find some loot chests and drops from enemies sometimes. And you'll slowly start to build some up. It's not a guaranteed chance that you always get a seed with every crop that you harvest. Not until later, until you get your farming skills up. So it's pretty vital that you don't chuck away any of your seeds in the early stages. Make sure you bring them back and get ready to go farming. You'll quickly see in the early stages you can go ahead and craft very basic water cans as well as get hold of a hoe. Now the first hoe that you get will only do maybe one crop square at a time, but as you upgrade it gets bigger and bigger. The hoe can be used to clear out slime and any other floor coverings that you might find useful later too. And just simply plant the seeds, water it with the can and then wait for them to grow. You also get a chance to make better watering cans, again that can water a large area, and eventually sprinklers. You can also go ahead and use the hoe to go ahead and harvest your crops really quickly. The only thing farming doesn't currently have, unless I've missed it, is a quick way to go ahead and plant your seeds. So you will have to put a little bit more work into your farming. Some crops you can only find in certain biomes. The majority do grow in just regular dirt, but some may need specific dirt or kinds of flooring from that particular biome. Like these golden fungi only grow in a mold biome, which means you're going to have to dig up some of the mold floor that you find in a dungeon and bring it back with you. This stuff you'll all learn and it's pretty self-explanatory as you go. Whenever you get a new seed, just try it out and it should say in the description where or how it might grow. There are skills associated pretty much everything you do in Core Keeper. As you progress and plant more, you'll gain more abilities to get more seeds guaranteed, double the yield of what you're getting. You can also get golden versions of your crops that give even more buffs. So don't miss out on farming. Make sure you go ahead and set up your farms as soon as possible so you've got a steady supply coming in. There will be a point where you probably won't have to touch it as much. But for sure in the early stages you want to be planting as much as possible, especially fibre. Fibre comes from the grub kapok seed and so it's definitely vital that you get that going as much as possible whenever you find some. This is what it looks like as it's growing, as you'll need plenty of fibre early on. So if you've always wanted a peaceful life, then you could go ahead and become a farmer, create special scenes and just basically plant and grow your crops. But what's the point in growing crops if you're not going to be using them to make some delicious meals? And that's the next big feature of Core Keeper. Cooking is super important to get them buffs from your foods. You can go ahead and eat a bunch of foods raw and some will give you bonuses as well as replenishing your actual food. But they definitely are better when you cook them. Core Keeper's got so many varied systems that you could spend literally hours tinkering around and exploring. And food is definitely one of them. Including all the various meats that you can cook, including fish that you can catch. There are over 100 different recipes for food, giving you all sorts of buffs. So planning out your meals to fit your playstyle is pretty important and another layer of complexity to Core Keeper. Generally the way food works is every 20 tiles that you move, it will take away one of your food points. There are a few exceptions, including if you travel by minecart, it actually reduces the amount of food that you need to eat, so that's a top tip which we'll talk about later. Some foods might give you slightly better food rather than actual decent buffs if you cook them on their own together, the same type, but generally it's always best advised to go ahead and mix and match your foods. So don't skip out on food, don't make just the basics, mess around and experiment unlock its full potential and get in better foods. Once you've got a recipe unlocked, you can then go ahead and look in your book and just choose what you want to craft, and it will automatically add it from your inventory. Or even better, make sure your food's in a chest next to your cook pot and it will pretty much drag it out from there. Automation is a huge part of Core Keeper as well. You'll find nodes scattered all around the world that you'll need to bring your specialist drill equipment with, set up small automation farms to go ahead and dig and mine some of these ores. They will run out eventually, but they can get you hundreds of the similar ore that might take you ages to go and explore and dig up yourself. You can set up sophisticated crafting systems, and if you've got the time and patience, even set up labyrinth networks of conveyor belts to bring your resources back to you. Although maybe not as needed anymore, with the variety of different ways that you can get resources, some of this stuff is best served using just for automation at home. Automation at home pretty much means you farming wood. You'll get special seeds that grow the types of wood in the game. You can plant these, set up drills around them, and every time it starts to grow a piece of that wood, the drill will cut it in half, and then you can set up the conveyor belts as well as some of these arms to go ahead and put it inside either a wood cutting machine or dump it straight in a chest. This is an essential part of the early game as well. Wood is everywhere in the core, but you do need the seeds, and you'll be surprised how much you get through. Find a little cavern nearby that isn't filled with slimes and make sure you plant them. Just leave it for a good while you explore, and every time you come back you can go ahead and harvest all the wood. And then as soon as you start unlocking things like the tin drills, then you can go ahead and plonk a generator down and start making your own wood farms. You're never really going to run out of needing wood, so it's always a good idea to do this early. So obviously crafting is a huge part of Core Keeper, whether or not it's making new armor and weapons or unlocking new benches to unlock things like automation. There is so much involved in terms of what you can make and what you can do, and juggling your time between that exploring can be hard to manage everything in one go. But that's the beauty of Core Keeper. Sometimes you want to just have a bit of a sort around your chest and decorate your base. Other times you want to go and pummel big monsters in the face. But essentially it's a simple process of you craft a workbench that will give you the means to go ahead and craft anything on that level or tier that you'll find useful, and then you can craft the next tier once you find new ores in a new biome. Then you craft that workbench and it gives you access to even more stuff. This is how you also get hold of your smithies to make different armors and weapons, but of course you'll find absolute hundreds of sets as you explore too. There is a crafting skill, and just like cooking as well as farming, it's really important. So top tip, make sure you craft early lots of items, especially decorative pieces or pieces of stone floor, stone walls, anything that you're definitely going to be using later. Get this out of the way once you've got a big surplus of resources like regular just stone that you found, or lots of wood from your trees that you've managed to go ahead and grow, and you can start getting a lot more from your crafting. Things like being able to get double the amount of items or costs of stuff gets reduced. There's lots of perks in the crafting skill. If I hadn't actually mentioned it, all skills are based on the more you do, the more experience you get in that skill, and then you can go and level up with different perks. When it comes to getting ready for bosses, there is an element of preparation. Some bosses are going to definitely require certain traps to be placed, or just making sure you've got absolutely the right build so you don't get smushed. Very first boss that you'll encounter, and I'm not going to spoil it with looking at any more, is Glurch the Abominable Mass. Basically this guy will try and squish you. Now, there's lots of slime all over the floor and all around. As he jumps from place to place, he'll start spreading even more of that slime, as well as his minions. So you need armor sets or potions or food that allow you to be able to sprint. You can also get a swift ring which allows you to dash quickly out the way too. Otherwise that slime will slow you down and make you an easy target for him. So this is just the first boss, and these are the recommended items that you would need to take him on successfully. Of course there's loads of different ways, and with the variety of different traps that there are in the game, as well as different builds, you will be able to find lots of unique ways to take on bosses, and that's a real big fun part of the game. Bosses drop unique items, and there are obviously some low percentage chances for some of the best gear, so you'll be replaying them over again. But don't panic, there's plenty of choice, there's loads of different variant bosses and new ones being added. While not completely at the level of Terraria with the sheer amount of bosses, it's getting pretty close. And there's even a collab with Terraria where you can take on a very famous slime in Core Keeper from Terraria. Of course, Core Keepers are a 1 to 8 player co-op game, and friends can bring their actual characters into your world with resources, so you can always ask your friends to cheekily lend you some ore. But be warned, some of the settings do mean that players could potentially come into your world and cause a lot of trouble if you share your code with strangers. So there's different ways to do that, and I'll probably do that in a separate video. If you don't like playing with real people, well, at least you can have some company in the form of a pet. There's a whole swathe of different pets you can get in the game, and they actually give you some pretty strong buffs that'll help you take on enemies or buff you directly so that you're either faster, stronger, and pretty much can do more. You'll come across pet eggs that you'll have to incubate, hatch them, and then you can start leveling them up as they accompany you on your adventures. From embertail foxes to slime babies, you can pretty much get a big choice in how it complements your playstyle, and you can switch anytime you want. So my current pet here is going to give me a speed boost, and that's pretty vital for the next boss that I'm about to encounter. They level up by directly giving them treats that you can find, as well as experience grown while with you. They don't have as many skills to go ahead and upgrade as you, but it certainly still is a benefit in doing so. There's all brand new pets being added as part of 1.0, but you might not discover all of them until the 27th. So that's 6 of the main things I would say in Core Keeper. Now let's talk about some smaller ones that are still pretty crucial when starting out. Where you can find song sheets giving you the chance to play some of the songs from others like Valheim, Owlboy and more. You can craft yourself a variety of different actual instruments and always carry one around with you, as you can find specially placed locked doors that can only be opened when you go ahead and play the right tune. Some of them can be quite challenging, just remembering by actually looking at the door itself, taking note of where the notes are placed, them little black little symbols, and then working out which one equals which and repeating obviously the musical pattern. So don't miss out, make sure you craft a music station as soon as you're able to. Traders are a huge part of Core Keeper. Not only will you be able to buy different items from them, but they'll also help you find some of the bosses you need to conquer. And it's a little mini game in itself, in decoration at least, as you're going to have to build special built rooms for them. Basically a bed, some sort of torch, their summoning item, and making sure the room's cozy enough and small. Too big and they won't spawn, too small and they won't spawn. Getting it just right. There are chances for you to find some of the traders out in the world as you're just roaming, but if you do want them to come back with you, then you definitely need to invest in making sure you've got habitats available. There's at least 3 different traders, not including the special events trader that you'll come across in the early stages of the 1.0 game, and then even more as you progress. And finally, you can get rid of all your knickknacks that you don't actually want, as well as all the loot and stuff that you've been coming across seemingly junk. I've done plenty of guides on how to summon some of these traders, so if you're still having problems, go and watch it, but otherwise, yeah, make sure this is on your radar within the first few hours, probably once you've defeated the first slime boss. Core Keeper's a huge game in terms of how you'll explore, and you will need help getting around the map a little bit easier. As I mentioned earlier, you can use the minecart once you've placed a good track for yourself. We'll talk about some of the other ways, but just a little reminder on the maps themselves. They are procedure generated. You'll start out in the core and the dirt biome, but you'll quickly start exploring the clay caves as well as the forgotten ruins. Eventually it does spread even further, and you'll be going through massive amounts of Asios wilderness, basically the jungle, as well as the sunken sea, some idyllic sandy beaches but with a lot of danger. After that you've got the desert at beginnings, which eventually leads to mini biomes like lava filled dungeons. In fact, there's pretty much mini biomes within all of these other biomes I just mentioned too. And of course new areas that have been added, like the passage for 1.0. The demo, the free version at least anyway, only allows you to traverse the first few biomes like the dirt biome, the clay and the forgotten ruins. The rest of it will be locked behind a barrier until you've reached a certain point in the early game. So top tip, once you find the location, which you can use summoning stones you buy from traders and more, of the bosses, always try and set up some sort of rail network to them, as it will save a lot in the future. 1.0 has added also special brand new waypoints that you can teleport back to the core with, and you'll be able to go ahead and craft your own teleportals eventually. Otherwise, the next best thing to get home is using things like your recall stones, which will give you a one-way ticket back to base. And lastly, if you're a budding pixel artist, you can have a great time trying to design elaborate maps. As you could see from my semi-castle that I was trying to make, you might be able to do a better job than me. But the art, the presentation, as well as the music really make Core Keeper a vibe that you can really just lose hour upon hours having fun, exploring, grafting, base building, pixel arting and more. So fingers crossed I've sold it enough. Make sure you go and check out the free demo and look forward to the console release and the 4.10 update. I'll be here every step of the way showcasing a ton of guides for 1.0, so make sure you're subscribed and I'll see you ratbags soon.